Hello, welcome to Curt Can't Talk. I am Curt, and I can talk. We are talking Formula One Hungary, the preview for this weekend. Specifically, I'm taking you through what are the best and the worst possible results for the championship. Now, when I talk about the health of the championship, we want a close title race, right? Unless you're a mad Kimi Antonelli fan, I'm sure you want something that's tight and close and exciting. So I'll take you through all of that. We'll go through a little bit of history of the results at the Hungaroring. The Hungaroring, aptly named because it's in Hungary, of course. What a great name. We should call the Albert Park Street Circuit the Australo-ring. I would like that. Last year, Piastri, of course. He, was leading, had a two-stop strategy, and then Norris dropped down to fifth, and he had a one-stop strategy, and that change meant that he went on to win after Leclerc got pole. Was that maybe a sign for future things to come with McLaren, papaya rules? Maybe it was, but it wasn't a good day for Piastri in the end. Norris won that one. This is a Grand Prix that Lewis Hamilton has won 8 times across his multiple teams. Not yet with Ferrari, but maybe this time. Who knows? Does this track suit Ferrari even better than Silverstone, even better than Spa? And hello, Real DK. Great to have you here, man. Lewis has it in the bag. Mark my words, says DK. Yeah, that's the question for this week. I feel like this, with maybe lower tyre deg, different aero requirements, I think this might suit Ferrari. And what they've done well is that they've had some good races and tracks that we didn't think would necessarily suit them. So now they're in a position where if this does suit them, like we think it will, Hamilton could really close the gap. Right, it's a big, big opportunity for Ferrari this weekend. We'll go in a second through where the points are at currently. But like I said, Lewis has won this Grand Prix, the Hungarian Grand Prix, 8 times. That's equal second on the most wins for a certain Grand Prix by an individual. So he actually holds the record, Lewis. He's won Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, 9 times. So he holds that record. Equal second is him at Hungary with 8. And Michael Schumacher, the French Grand Prix when it was at Manicourt. Back in the day. He won that 8 times as well. Let's have a look at the previous winners of the Hungarian Grand Prix. I'll get them up. Here we go. So what do we got? Well, there's actually quite a long history. This race goes back all the way to 1936, where they ran it once. A man from Italy named Tazio Nuvolari. He won it. For Alfa Romeo. That is an Italian win all round. However, it was then not held for 60 years, the best part of 60 years, from 37 to 85. 50 years, let's call that. Then the Brazilians dominated it for a while. We have Piquet and Senna. Mansell got in there, Thierry Boutsen, Senna a couple more. And then we go all the way down to this period of dominance from Lewis Hamilton, which started in 2007 in Hungary in McLaren Mercedes. Kovalainen won as well. Remember when Heikki Kovalainen was racing for McLaren? Wow, that's a long time ago now. Then Hamilton, Webber got one, Button, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Vettel, Hamilton, Vettel again, and then 3 in a row for Lewis at Mercedes. And then the most random one. We had some really random results, didn't we, during COVID, 2020 and 2021. Esteban Ocon won his maiden Grand Prix for Alpine, back when Alpine could compete, remember? And Alonso did an incredible job of basically blocking for his teammate, holding up traffic so that, deliberately, strategically, smartly, skillfully, so that Ocon could go on and win it. So that's a random result. Then we had the Max dominant years of 22 and 23. He wins there. Oscar Piastri in 24 and Lando Norris in 25, the race that I alluded to earlier where the change in strategy helped out Lando Norris. Robbie's here. Hey, Robbie, good to have you here, man. Ferraris should do well there this weekend. Yeah, that's the hope. That's the thought. That's what everybody assumes. And I'll get to those point scenarios in just a second. Why don't we do a hot lap? Of the Hungaroring. It's one of my favorite tracks. I actually really like this, especially playing on the video games. It is a cool track. Let's go. This is Charles Leclerc's pole lap from last year, before he, had no race pace and then eventually fell away. But let's run with this. So down the straight, nicely sized straight at Hungary. Into turn 1, hard on the brakes. Essentially a hairpin. Then there's a sort of 1A, not really a turn. Into turn 2, a lot of curvy, hairpinny corners like this. Turn 3, just a little kick to the right, flat stick. Little kinky turn 4. Then another long, curvy right-hand turn. Then we go into the chicane. 6, bang. Into 7, bang. Looks like he wasn't that quick through there, but this is a pole lap. Then he goes left into 8, right into 9. Hey, Waffles, I see you. Little kink to the left for 10. Almost flat through 11. Then hard brake, 90-degree right-hander for 12. And the first of 2 hairpins. This is the tighter one. Pit entry there. And then the slightly less tight, flowy right-hand hairpin onto the main straight. I hope you could hear that okay. Hello, Waffles. Where can you send a photo of the new Aston Martin? Ooh, interesting. Send it to curtis@musclecat.com.au. curtis@musclecat.com.au. That's my email. Go for it. You can spam me if you like. Send it there, and I'll see if I can open that up while we're talking. Let me know when you've sent it, because I can't see a link. I can't see a link in the chat, man. It doesn't come up. I think YouTube has rules against that. So that's the hot lap of Hungary. It's a cool track. What I love about it is you've got these corners that are almost flat stick, or maybe just one downshift, and then it's a slight little kink to the left or the right. And then you've got about 4 corners that are these perfect hairpins, perfect shaped hairpins. Some are slightly tighter than others, some are slightly wider. But what Hungary does have is a great amount of passing opportunities. That's why it's such a great track. I reckon we'll see some really good racing here this weekend. But great to have you here, Waffles. Let's have a look at, we've had a look at the past winners. Yeah, what I promised you is the ideal results for this week, okay? So by ideal, I mean a tight championship, okay? We want a close championship. As neutral fans, I mean, I go for Piastri, obviously, being an Australian, but we want a tight championship from the neutrals' perspective. This is where the points are at the moment. Okay, so obviously we got the Kimi Antonelli lead. He's on 204 points. So he's got a lead of 45 points over Lewis Hamilton, a lead of exactly 50 points over his teammate George Russell, and then Charles Leclerc, you can probably say is, the last of the realistic guys, maybe even not realistic anymore. He's probably out of the championship race, 126 points. So he's, 78 points behind Kimi Antonelli. That's a long way behind. Okay, Waffles, thanks for that. I'll get to that email in just a bit. But realistically, it's probably a 3-horse race from here, right? We've got Kimi, we've got Lewis, we've got George. George is a bit of a head case at the moment, but until the retirement on the weekend, he did have good results, 2nd, 1st, and 2nd. He made up a lot of points on Kimi, who went 16th, 3rd, and 15th. He had some technical issues, some issues of his own making before he gets the win in Belgium. So that result wasn't great for the championship, right? Russell retires, Kimi gets another 25 points, Lewis finishes only 4th. Charles Leclerc takes 2nd. Verstappen got only his 2nd podium of the year. So what is the worst case scenario for this weekend as far as the championship? Well, I think that's pretty obvious. The worst result is right here. Kimi Antonelli to win it, which is a very realistic chance. I mean, I think he's sort of over that little hiccup of the last month that he's had. You know, it was not a good month until Spa. He gets that win, confidence is right back. And it doesn't take much to restore confidence in an already confident 19-year-old like him. If Antonelli wins, and then I've tried to make some realistic results here. I'm not saying that Leclerc, Hamilton, and Russell DNF, right? Because that won't happen. But if the Ferrari pace is just okay, if it's just disappointing, if there's a few strategic mistakes and they end up giving Leclerc a 4th, you know, and Hamilton gets a 6th, just medium results that don't really yield many points. And then something that's very likely or possible to happen is a DNF for George Russell, whether it's technical, whether it's through his own fault, whatever. Some things are going really badly for George this year, and I can see it happening in the worst case scenario this week. Antonelli wins, Russell DNFs, and the Ferraris are just okay. Where that would leave us is here, with a big, big gap. In fact, a gap of 62 points if if that scenario comes true. Antonelli would be on 229 and just racing away with it, going into the summer break, right? And it's so important. We know momentum going into the summer break is important. There's a 4-week break before we get back to the action. We don't want a championship that's blown out after 11 of 23 races. No, we're not quite halfway yet, but we want it to be tight. We want it to be tight going in. So if it happens that way, if Antonelli wins and Russell DNFs, then you can basically count Russell out, right? And what it means too, if we do have a scenario like this with the worst case scenario, what it means is that Mercedes' decision about the number 1 driver, if it's not already been decided, then their minds will be made up, which will only further increase the gap. Every upgrade, every strategic advantage, every tactical decision will clearly go the way of Kimi Antonelli if Russell has a bad weekend and Kimi goes well. So that's what could happen to really blow this out. But there is an ideal result for us neutrals. And that is, and you may not like George Russell, but if you want a tight championship, he needs to win this week. If the Ferraris then get on the podium and Kimi has his first proper DNF of the year, that makes it interesting. This is the result we want as Formula One fans. We want Russell to win this week going into the break. We want the Ferraris to pick up good points. We want Antonelli to DNF. I love Kimi Antonelli. I'm not wishing ill upon him. But this would make it interesting, right? Because what this would spit out is, yes, still an Antonelli lead, but Russell goes second, just ahead of Hamilton by 2 points, and Leclerc gets enough points just to stay in the hunt still with 12 races to go. It makes the constructors interesting, but it makes the Mercedes decision incredibly interesting. Because if Russell wins this week and Antonelli DNFs, it is exactly a 25-point gap going into the summer break. And as we know, 25 points is exactly the amount of a race win. So if that's how, even put all the Ferrari stuff aside, if George wins and Antonelli doesn't finish, we have exactly a 1-race gap. And then there's 4 weeks of pondering for Mercedes, right? There's 4 weeks of going, is Kimi definitely our number 1, or is George potentially our number 1? Or are they both equal? Do we give no advantage? Do we do what the Racing Bulls have done, which is awesome, and said, hey, you guys are the same. Whoever wins in qualifying in this race, at this race weekend, you get the upgrades next week. So go nuts. That would be awesome. That would be very, very cool. Wherever you're watching from, if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. And tell me where you are as well. Robbie, I know you're watching from Australia. Real DK, Waffles, let us know where you're watching from, dudes. Thank you so much for joining in, and pop any questions in the chat as well. Waffles, I'll try and get to your email. Let's have a look at this. Here we go, from Gavin. Oh, here we go. All right, I'm going to get that photo up. This is the new Aston Martin, the much vaunted Aston Martin. Let's have a look. I'm going to try and not reveal too much of my email stuff going on here. Hang on. All right, bang. Look at this. Look at this access. This is this feels like an unauthorized photo to me from Matthias Marus. That's a very Hungarian name. So this is the week, as we know, of those those much vaunted Aston Martin updates, right? And thanks for sending that photo, Waffles. I appreciate that. Watching from the USA. Awesome. Whereabouts, man? What do we see from Aston Martin? Because it's been utterly embarrassing so far. We know that. We've had promises and delays, and finally they're here. But it can't make that much difference. This is a team that's 5 seconds a lap off the pace in some cases, right? They've earned 1 point, which was a miracle from Fernando Alonso, and probably nobody else on earth could have earned that point, but he somehow did it. I don't know. I don't know how much we can get from Aston Martin this week, but all we hope is that they can shave off. I mean, a couple of seconds feels like a lot, but if they can just get themselves to a point where they're not embarrassing every week and they're not wasting the careers of good drivers, particularly Fernando Alonso. You know, on the Muscle Cat Media Network, which is where Curt Can't Talk is a part of, and that's my network. You can't see it in the background, but that door has the logo of Muscle Cat Media on the back. We have a show called Box of Neutrals, the Formula One podcast, hosted by Michael Laminato and Rob James. And that show's been going for about 16 years. They're very, very good. And they've watched most of Fernando Alonso's career, the Box of Neutrals boys. Give them a follow on Spotify. And they made the point not long ago that Fernando has now spent more years not winning in F1 than he spent winning. You know, those glory days of Ferrari and, you know, Renault, they're a distant memory now. They are a distant memory. He had the disastrous McLaren Honda era, the first iteration of it, when the cars looked awesome but were as slow as a wet week. And obviously he's had many, many poor years since then. And Aston Martin has been the nadir of that. So it's very depressing to think that somebody like Fernando has let his career peter out like this and has been as patient as possible with a team like Aston Martin. I'm very skeptical as to how good these updates can be, but who the heck knows? Who the heck knows? The Constructors' Championship is interesting. You know, where it's currently a 73-point gap. I know this won't happen, but if it's a double DNF for Mercedes and a 1-2 for Ferrari, then it goes back to 30 points going into the summer break. Now, I know that that's not particularly interesting. We don't care as much about the Constructors' Championship. We will if it gets close in the back half of the year, but that's where it's at. So they're our ideal results for this weekend in Hungary. My predictions, I'll get these points back up. I do think it'll be a good weekend for Ferrari. Maybe this is wishful thinking on my behalf. I'm not actually a Ferrari fan per se. I just want a close race and a close championship. But I do predict Lewis to win it. It's been 3 races now since his win in Barcelona. He's very good in Hungary. He's clearly got confidence in the car again. Yes, Belgium wasn't their best weekend, but they were still 4th. They still had some pace, right? I think Hamilton wins. I think George comes 2nd. I think Kimi comes 3rd. And Leclerc, unlucky not to podium. Let me know in the chat what your predictions are. But this is almost make or break for George Russell now. He has been a head case lately. Actually, before I go, let's find George's radio where he blew up. I don't know if you guys saw this. The unacceptable. Here we go. This is a video from a guy called Raw Keek. I'll put his username in there so that you guys can see it. Let's have a look. Let's break this down.
5 minutes to formation lap. So time information from P1 to P12, Hulkenberg, everyone is on new medium tires. The first hard tire starter is P13 Norris. The first soft starter is P17 Bottas.
I get on it.
I will just fire up. 15 seconds.
I want to get to the meltdown. Where's the meltdown?
And will be 4 burnouts starting
Thanks, Kesh.
DRS line. Final burnout.
Here we go.
Stopped. Reminder, boost press.
I'm out. What the fuck happened with the sock down the straight? I had no backing battery down the straight. Guys, unacceptable. Fucking acceptable.
Right, that was the interesting bit I was trying to get to. Unacceptable, un-effing acceptable, says George Russell to his team. Yeah, obviously frustrated because this should have been his year, right? He didn't expect Kimi's development to be this quick. Nobody did. And especially after the first race when he's putting on a Borat impression saying, I love this car, I love this engine. And then he sort of lost confidence in it halfway and then returned back to his normal accent of the posh man from King's Lynn. But to go from that in Australia where he won that race to what the season's been since, it would be utterly infuriating for George Russell. And he did his apprenticeship, right? He did his apprenticeship in a bad Williams for years. And he got a glimpse during the COVID years when there were weird things, and he got a race or two in Mercedes and almost won an early one there. And now he's come across to Mercedes. Now he's done his apprenticeship there. And this was meant to be his year. and it's not going to be. So I understand the desperation. But you see this a lot in Formula One. When a guy's at this point of crashing out, not only on the track, but mentally and lashing out at his team, it never ends well. It very, very rarely bounces back. Max Verstappen is maybe the one exception where he almost pinched the championship last year, but he's more talented than George Russell. I think that's just a fact. He's more talented. And Red Bull got on a really strange run post Christian Horner's departure last year. Strange as in almost magical form. So I don't see that from Russell here. But hey, the Hungarian Grand Prix, I can't wait for it. I'll review it with you next week on the Curt and Jim show. Tune in on Monday. If you're watching Waffles, for example, I don't think I've seen you before. Please hit subscribe, man. Thank you so much for sending that email through. I'm going to talk a lot of F1. Most weeks, I'm going to try and do a separate Formula One stream on here as well. So stick around for that. That'll do for now. Just a nice little preview and some scenarios heading into the Hungarian Grand Prix. Tell your mates, hit subscribe if you haven't, and thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you very, very soon. Thanks, Waffles. Thanks for subscribing, man. You're a legend.